We have reached the draft here on our MLB the Show draft only franchise. And today we make the decision. Do we draft Johnny Higgins or Tom Williamson at number 1 overall? Yes, we have a lot of other decisions to make as well, but this decision at number 1 overall is by far the biggest one we will make in this draft. Now, before I tell you my decision of who I have decided to select between these two players, I'm going to make the case for each one of them. We'll first make the case for Tom Williamson and why we should draft Tom Williamson. This is a guy who is going to have a very special blend of stamina, velocity, and break. Those are the 3 ratings that are just very, very hard to develop. We're talking probably 90 velocity, mid-80s break, high 90s stamina. That is incredibly special. And you combine that with the fact that I don't think any of his per 9s are going to be below 50. Not only is this guy obviously very high potential, but he's a pitcher that could be impactful very early on, could even play in the majors in his year 18 season. Another case for Tom Williamson is just the fact that I've done probably between my on-camera and off-camera drafts around 30 some odd drafts in this game. And in those drafts, I've found roughly a dozen, maybe a few more generational position players, hitters. But this will be the first generational pitcher I will have found in the game at all. And so this archetype is just a lot rarer to me than finding a generational hitter. Now, in terms of where we would play Johnny Higgins, right? We would play him in the outfield. And there was a comment on our last draft preview episode that while we may not be super big fans of Aldon Evans right now, we do have a guy like Ray Beasley in the fold. And I think Ray Beasley has kind of a similar build to an Aldon Evans. And so will he be more successful than him? I don't really know we can say that with confidence. I think he at least has a better arm for the outfield, and his still a long way to go. So he still has, 20 overall plus to improve, or at least has the chance to do that. We don't know if he necessarily will. Aldon Evans, I think, has low B potential, but you're talking about a guy, contact, not very much defense, not very much power. My kind of theory, or what I'm wanting for players at the MLB level, you have contact, you have power, you have fielding. Give me 2 out of the 3. Give me 2 out of the 3 if you want to be, a regular on the MLB team. I don't think either of these guys give me much beyond contact at this point in their young careers. But the point in the favor of Tom Williamson is that at least we have options in the outfield, right? Which is where we would play Higgins should we draft him. We have Gil, Velasquez, who's had pretty good moments for us. He's already capped out. McIntyre, of course, Evans and Beasley, all guys who could be potential, long-term outfielders for us. I really like Gil and I really like McIntyre. I'm not sure about that 3rd spot, but we do have options for it. So it's not like we desperately need an outfielder in this draft. And so that's kind of the case for Tom Williamson. If you take a look here at our pitching rotation, we do have 5 guys with A potential, but I mean, Tate Castilla, many years away. Floyd Sable, many years away. John May is several years away, and he's already 25 years old. Torres, probably going to be a guy that's going to enter our major league rotation in the near future. Same with Diego Moya. So we have a couple guys. And then in terms of guys with B potential, I really like Esteban Acevedo. So we do have a few pitchers. But do we have a guy that I can confidently say right now, I think this guy is the ace of the future? I don't think we do. I think Tom Williamson easily slots into that future ace. We got like a 2 in Edgar Torres, a 3 or a 4 in Moya. The other one in that 3 or 4 spot is E.27, and then maybe a guy like Pringle, who's already 81 overall in that 5 spot. I think you can easily slot that in as a future, now 1 through 5 at pitching and be confident in it. But it doesn't really seem like a complete pitching unit without Williamson. But now shifting towards the case to draft Johnny Higgins, we do have a lot of options, right? At pitcher. We may not have somebody that I can confidently say as of today can be an ace, but are we going to say that, Torres could never be an ace, Moya could never be an ace? Are we going to say even E.27, whose B potential is a high B potential, that he could never be an ace? We might not have that slam dunk ace yet, but I talked about having outfield options as a point in the favor of drafting Williamson. Well, we certainly have options at pitcher as well. None of them are incredible, but I think we have some really solid ones. We drafted Edgar Torres last year for the same role that we would be drafting Williamson this year, right? To be the future ace. When I drafted Torres in the first round, I was hoping that we could get our future ace. Now, his ratings are all over the map, right? They're either like in the 70s or they're in the 40s. And so maybe not quite MLB ready to be an ace. Could he eventually get there? He needs some obviously major development and control, K per 9 and hits per 9. But you really have to like where his walks per 9 is, his clutch, his stamina as well. He's been pitching well at the AA level. We could even maybe see him get a shot at the MLB at some point in this season. We've only seen him once. I do plan to actually watch him again, either this episode or next. I haven't decided about what I'm going to do after the draft, if we'll watch any baseball. If we do watch any baseball, apart from just doing the draft in this episode, it will be looking in at our minor league team. It will not be major league in this episode. We'll probably be looking at guys like Esteban Acevedo and Edgar Torres should we actually play some baseball this episode. But going back to reasons we should draft Johnny Higgins, I mean, look at the guy. He's going to be a guy who will be the best hitting prospect we will have drafted through, what is this, draft number 6 or 7? I can't even remember this point. This is year 6, so I think draft 7. Anyway, I mean, look at the power. He's going to start with his power already in the mid 70s. We have drafted a generational position player already in this franchise, of course, in Russell Mosqueda, but Johnny Higgins is a better hitter than Mosqueda, despite being, a generational prospect at the same position. We would not be playing him at third base. Like I said, he would be playing a corner outfield spot, despite that not being one of his listed positions. I think we could easily have him play that. But, we are 30th in the MLB in power, maybe 29th. I can't remember. Let's go ahead and take a look at it now. We are 30th in power, but we can't really use that as a point in the favor of Higgins because we're also 30th in pitching. And so both of these guys give us something that we desperately need. The case is very, very easy to make for both of them. Another point maybe in the favor of Johnny Higgins is if you look kind of at the rest of the draft after round 1, the prospects that we like are mostly pitchers. We do have a couple position players on our board, but what we really like is the pitching position afterwards. I don't know how strong of a point in the favor of Higgins that is, though, because a lot of these guys are just going to end up like the pitchers that we already have, where they're going to be, maybe A potential, high B potential, but they're going to be guys like Tate Castilla. We have Tate Castillas on the roster. We have Floyd Sables on the roster. We have Daniel Drivers. We have so many long-term projects at pitcher already. What we really need is a win now pitcher who also has the upside. And so man, it's so hard that we found this draft. We are going to be using our last scouting here to get some extra interest here from Johnny Higgins in case we are to draft him, but both of these players fit exactly what we need. There's just, couldn't be a more perfect draft to fit something that we need. These are probably our two biggest needs. I'd say maybe middle infield is also equally as high of a need. I think if Higgins had more speed, I'd be comfortable playing there. I just don't think he or Mosquera should be playing middle infield because they're not like excellent fielders by any means, and they're not very speedy by any means either, especially Higgins here. I have made my decision. Let's go ahead and now fast forward to the draft to make it. Now, I actually have already fast forwarded to the draft. I wanted to use that other save file because, of course, this game, you can't actually look at the scouting unless you're on a Sunday. And so I actually had a pretty good week leading up to the draft, but here we have it. Draft day is officially here. Let's go ahead and simulate now to the draft and make our picks. Mosquera had a minor injury and he's already done with it. Of course, we don't do trades here. So let's hop in to the draft. Now we're gonna add both of these players to our board. I forget what button that is. Let me hide my camera so I can see it real quick. I guess it's not even there. Do I just, okay. Add to the queue. We're gonna add both of these players. Now, a point in Higgins' favor is that most of the draft that we like after first round is pitching, but our discovery scout found somebody on the last week that is very intriguing. Now, he's also very risky, of course, because we have not scouted him at all. But if you take a look at this player, there is now a position player that just from this first look has a lot of potential. He has a lot of potential. What if he was, 70 overall with 89 potential? We're talking about a guy, power already in the 60s. We're talking about a guy whose contact right is in the 50s as well. Discipline wouldn't be great, but his vision would be good, and he could field as well with a strong arm. He, of course, much like Higgins, we would draft and then play in a corner outfield spot. I think he would just be another body that we would put out there. Of course, he also comes with risk because we have not actually scouted him at all. But I think that I'd be comfortable drafting him just the same. Also going to be adding these other top 10 pitchers to our list. Just guys that our Discovery Scout has found. And then we're also going to be putting a couple of other maybe high risk players, a closer that if they drop to the second round, I wouldn't be sad. I really think we need another closer. I just didn't have nearly as much time to scout. Scouting two generational players, it just kind of takes a lot of the other weeks out. You don't have as much of a chance to scout the depth of a class because to get accurate ratings on a generational player, you typically have to scout them for 3 weeks. That's with a good scout as well. And so that just, it takes away the depth of a class. But as you can see, I'm not 100% done adding people to the queue. How can I add more? Here we go. There's another guy that I think, should he last to the second, I would like very much. That's Thomas Oka. The guy I would like later in the class, William Ikeda. But yeah, just the options at position player are just so much more thin after the first round. I have made my decision on who I am taking number 1 overall. And let's go ahead now and get to the draft. And with the first overall pick in the, 2028 MLB draft, we will be selecting Tom Williamson. Oh, I need to start the draft. Lol. I'll be selecting Tom Williamson. Just the rarity for me. He is a player that I haven't been able to draft in the game so far, and I think that kind of gave it the edge. Also, having a guy like Fernando Cruz, that our Discovery Scout found at the very last week, gave me a very intriguing position player that we could draft later in the draft. Risky, of course, but I still like the prospects of drafting him. Tom Williamson here. He's a pitcher. He's not going to play every game. Higgins would have. I understand that. There were comments advocating for Williamson. There were comments advocating for Higgins. In the end, I just had to do what I wanted, and I have never drafted a generational pitcher, and I really wanted the chance to do so. Higgins, of course, is an awesome player and would have been the best hitter on the team. Maybe not year 1, but he would have been like the best. Like, he's not would have been better year 1 than like Mosquera and Ricona are now, but he was definitely better at the time we drafted him. You know, the best power hitter we've seen yet in this series, and that's tough to pass on. But I think we do have other power options. You know, Mosquera is a good power hitter. Rincon is a good power hitter. Roman is a good power hitter. Sandoval is a solid power hitter. So it's not like we're totally lost there, even though we are ranked 30th. I don't think we're without option in that part of, you know, the game. And so I think it was honestly the toughest decision I've had to make in MLB The Show 23. Either of my franchises, we had the choice between 2 generationals in my athletics franchise at one point as well, but that decision was easy for me. I think it was between 2 position players, and one guy had more power and speed, and so that made it pretty easy. It was never honestly that much of a discussion. This one was very hard because it's you can't compare hardly a pitcher to a hitter, you know? And I just think we needed both. Higgins ends up going to the Mets at number 8 overall. I don't know how he slides so far. These teams are all just brain dead. I think there was only one player. Gonzalez goes pretty high in this class. I think Gonzalez was a good player, but nowhere near Higgins. I mean, I don't even care if you don't need a third baseman. Like I said, this guy can play third, first, or either of the corner outfield spots. I think you could put him in. Every team needs one of those, I feel like, right? Maybe there's like one team that is super solid at all those spots. I'm gonna hide my camera temporarily as we keep going through this class. But I know especially there will be one person particularly disappointed that we didn't draft Higgins, and it was very, very tough. I think honestly Francisco Cruz being available for us, and if he gets drafted, that's going to be really unfortunate. But I think this is an intriguing enough guy that it just kind of pushed it over the edge, where I actually think Cruz could be an awesome second round pick. Now, of course, we don't actually have him scouted, of course, as I've said, so he could actually be a bust. But the fact that we have no idea kind of actually intrigues me. The only other position player I thought was worth our second round pick was Oka, and he actually goes all the way up at number 16. Great contact, great vision and discipline. Of course, wouldn't have helped us in power at all. Would have been, you know, a middle infielder with some upside, with some speed and some stealing, fielding, contact. Again, what do I want? I want 2 out of the 3. Can they give me contact, hitting, power? Give me 2. This guy has 2. So I would have been very comfortable taking him should he have fallen, but he was MLB draft ranked 26. Our scouts thought that was a little bit overrated. I thought he was worth a first round pick for sure. A guy who's going to come in, be in the high 60s overall with, you know, mid-B potential. that's worth a late first for sure, and that's where it ends up getting taken more mid first, but I think that's still fine. It's going to be better than probably several guys drafted ahead of him today. Other guys that we scouted, Costa, overrated. Percy Carrasco was my favorite pitcher after the first round, and he's gone. Wasn't expecting any of these guys. Mac Jansen. Our scouts really loved this guy. I thought he was pretty solid, but Francisco Cruz goes at 24. No shot. There goes our round 2 plans. Pretty much everybody that I liked in round 2 is gone. It was Percy Carrasco, it was Thomas Oka, and it was Francisco Cruz. Those were the guys. Those were the guys for me for round 2. They really were. Dang. That sucks a whole lot. What do we do now in round 2? We have a pick. We don't pick till 37. I think we just simulate to our pick now. What do we do here? Honestly, we probably take a chance on this closer. Or this reliever, one of them. I'd honestly rather take the chance on this closer. That's rough, man. We draft the closer. Oh man. A guy, excellent hits per 9, strikeouts per 9 are solid. Pretty solid all around with his per 9s. I think velocity, breaking control also. This guy just looks really good. Pitch mix is his biggest weakness, but he's a closer, he's a 1-inning guy. I don't think pitch mix is that important. Getting now to the next one. This is a guy that our scouts have as a top 5 player in the class. I think you just take that at this point. So he's going to be he's definitely a long-term guy. Going to be in the 50s overall, but A potential would be my guess because our scouts are so high on him. I have 2 guys left. Another developmental pitcher. I think we take Ikeda here, just a hitter, not high upside at all. Mess is still there. In the 5th, we take that, and then in the 6th round is the first time that we're going off of our draft board. John Sampson's here. It was absolute gas for the bullpen. We draft him. There we go, and that's the draft. So, I think disappointing in round 2, but I think rounds 1 and then 3 through 6, I'm happy with what we got. Pretty much every other draft, just very not super happy that we couldn't get one of kind of the big 3 I was hoping for in our 2nd round. There were 3 guys that I thought were gonna make it. 2 of them were not ranked. Oka was more of a long shot always. There were 2 discovery guys. I was hoping one of them would make it. Neither of them did. So with the draft over, it now comes time to sign our picks, and the guys we had interest on, including Tom Williamson, they were pretty straightforward to sign. They signed relatively quickly, but apart from kind of missing on my 1st round pick, we got some guys with some pretty low interest as well. Not my 1st round pick, excuse me, my 2nd round pick. At least missing in the sense of not getting who I wanted. We got some guys with some pretty low interest. It would take until the final week to get these last 3, even with a high enough interest to actually be able to make an offer. Ikeda would end up rejecting in the final week. By the time we got more scouting on him, he didn't look all that great anyway. So am I super sad that we didn't get Ikeda? No, especially because if I want to, I can sign him come the off season anyway. But before we take a look at the class as a whole, one thing I wanted to add to this episode, even though it makes it a little bit longer than I typically like episodes to be, is I wanted to take a look at some of the young pitchers we already have. Of course, we added a lot to the pitching room in this draft. Ended up, because Ikeda wouldn't sign, not getting a single position player. But September is just around the corner now, as we're going to end this episode at the beginning of August, which means September call-ups are near, and I think I want to add one of our, high ceiling pitchers here to the MLB roster. And so there are really 3 of those playing at our AA level right now. The first one you're seeing here is Edgar Torres. Of course, our first round pick from last year, touted as a guy who wouldn't take very long to develop in the minors before he'd be ready. But one thing that you're seeing a little bit here is he just has a really low combination of hits per 9 and strikeouts per 9. Now, he sims well. He's had a really good year in simulation because his walks per 9 rating is in the high 70s. But because both his strikeouts and his hits per 9 are in the 40s, he just doesn't seem to play as well when we watch. Now, in a series like this, where we play what is not even like 10% of the games because the MLB season is so long. And once we become competitive at the MLB level, I imagine we will see more games in a single season. But still the most important thing, well over half, 90, at least 80% of the season, probably, yeah, it's safe to say 90% of the season is going to be simulated in an MLB series. And so how somebody simulates at the end of the day is more important, and Edgar Torres simulates well. But at the end of the day, also, if he's going to be one of the highest ceiling pitchers, I'm going to want to check in on him in a lot of our episodes. And just so far, this is the second time we've checked on him here at the minor leagues. And if you can't force soft contact with the low hits per 9, and you can't strike people out, it's just going to be, how are you getting your outs, in our spotlight episode games? I think ultimately Edgar Torres is somebody that will not be getting called up this year. I think he just needs the full year, at least in the minors, to develop. Now, the second guy that we're now seeing here is Esteban Acevedo, who has been on our team for a couple years now, and he doesn't have quite as high of a ceiling. He's the only guy with B potential that we're seeing here, but it's high B potential, and he throws for absolute gas. He'd be the hardest throwing pitcher we'd have in our starting lineup should we call him up. And he's also having the best year at the AA level, pitching sub 3 ERA with pretty much a strikeout an inning. I think he's just under a strikeout an inning, which is just something that our major league team is not doing. We are not striking people out this year at all. And I think he'd add a skill set that's a bit different than what we kind of have on the roster. Now, he's not perfect. His main weakness is home runs per 9. And I think that just kind of comes with the territory of these pitchers that throw really hard. Is that, you get a really nice fastball down the middle that's going that hard, it's going to be a little bit easier to take that 1 yard if you barrel it up right, And so in this game, I was really impressed with what I've seen from him. He's definitely maybe a hot and cold pitcher. He's not going to be a guy that's going to come out and, only allow 2 runs every single time he takes the mound. I feel like he's going to have some bad performances, but he's going to put up some good ones as well. Much like he's doing here as he's into the 6th, has not allowed a single run. Of course, has allowed some hits, but there you have it. The low home runs per 9, left a fastball over the middle. A little bit easier to barrel that one up than maybe some other pitchers. This is, at the AA level. So could home runs be a problem for him at the major leagues? I think so, but I think he has a much better chance of getting the call up than Edgar Torres. The third guy here is Diego Moya. He is another lefty, much like Edgar Torres. The name of his game is more trying to pitch for soft contact. He's not much of a strikeout pitcher like we just saw from Esteban Acevedo, although he gets one here. But he's having, out of the three, he's having the worst sim year at the AA level. Which again, how they simulate is very important. And I think with him, he's definitely somebody that I have, a lot of hope for going into his future, as we see a nice throw out there from Philip Jung, which is definitely not his strong suit. He's not a great defensive catcher, but we'll say that of the three pitchers here, Moya seems like he's going to be the most steady. He's kind of going to be that one, kind of like I was saying that Esteban Acevedo isn't. He's going to be, all right, we're allowing 2 to 4 runs every time. I'm never going to, just absolutely get thrashed for 9 runs, but I'm probably not pitching a bunch of shutouts either. Of the 3 that I watched today, as we get to the end of Moya's performance here, I think I would have to give the edge to Esteban Acevedo. Diego Moya actually made it the deepest into his game of the 3 that I watched. But Esteban Acevedo, I think, was pretty dang good. Got into the 6th without allowing a run. And then also just having the best year in simulation of the 3. So now it's time to take a look at what our draft class looks like. And Tom Williamson, 81 overall with 99 potential, was the generational pitcher that I thought he would be. His velocity is actually higher than I thought. I don't think 95 was even in his range, but 86 break, 98 stamina. This guy is going to be able to pitch us some complete games, which is going to be really exciting. That level of stamina now. Stamina that high definitely increases your overall. Maybe it makes it a little bit deceiving, but his per 9s are also really well rounded. He has nothing below the 50s, and his only per 9, at least below the 60s, is his home runs per 9. Mariano Gonzalez is a miss. This is not the closer of our future. Unfortunate, but we knew it was a risk when he took him, and our second round plans just kind of went to the crapper, and so we ended up with a bad pick, and that's okay. Charles Hamilton also has 99 potential. Now he's only 61 overall, and again, very high stamina is even making that look better than it should be. I was wondering why our scouts saw him as the 5th best player in the class. I said he needed to be at the very high end of his ranges to actually be that good, and he ended up being at the very high end of those ranges, but 23 walks per 9 is very, very low. That's hard to overcome, but with 99 potential, I mean, you gotta have faith that he might be the one that can actually do it. But Harrison Mesa, he's a solid pitcher, just another guy that can potentially make it, you never know. And John Sampson, not much of a reliever there, but he does throw for absolute gas. His fastball still only hits the mid to high 90s, but going to be able to strike people out, which is exciting. Throw out hard. So that's solid. It's not a complete waste of a pick, but he's not exciting by any means. I think this might go down as one of my worst draft classes, especially just because I feel like it's easily my worst second round pick I've made in the series. But I kind of knew going in. We spent 6 whole weeks scouting, generational players, and that really hurts my knowledge of just kind of the depth of the class. Also, the lack of good discovery people. One of the good guys that we discovered was Percy Carrasco. Awesome break, good stamina as well. Of course, he was on my short list to be a pick in the second round. He just didn't make it there. Sylvester Milton, obviously a better pick, at a closer. I just still don't know if I like that pick. All he has is a fastball and a changeup. So if you just look at overall and potential, you probably say that's a good pick. But I don't think it actually was all that impressive. But Robbie Rooney, this would have been a closer that I would have liked for sure. I would have been down for a Robbie Rooney. It was a little bit harder. Doesn't have all that much upside though, but kind of looking like not the best class if we're being honest. So maybe I actually didn't miss out on that much. But obviously we still have a ton of teams to go through still. William Bray, pretty solid reliever. Wouldn't have worked as our closer of our future though. Johnny Higgins. Now this is the guy that everybody wanted to see. This is exactly what I thought he would be. Thought he was going to be 82 overall. His powers were going to be in the mid 70s, and obviously this is a guy that you really would have liked to have on your team. It was just pick your, what's the opposite of poison? Like healing juice? I don't know. You know, it was two incredible options at the #1 overall pick. Whoever we didn't get, we were going to be sad about, right? If we were looking at the Mets drafting Williamson with 95 velocity, 98 stamina, 86 break, 81 overall, we'd be like, dang, I really wish I had him on our team. But I'm really happy to have Williamson, really sad to not have Higgins. That was just the reality, whichever way we went. And Higgins would have been awesome. I would have loved that pick. And the Mets also got themselves a good hitting shortstop prospect as well with a lot of upside. But so far, it's not looking like, apart from those two, it was all that great. Thomas Oka ends up at the very low end of his ratings. This is 66 overall and 82 potential was the absolute lowest he could have gone. Still, would have been better than what we ended up with in the second round, so would have loved to have had him. Would have made our draft look better. Contact hitting third baseman here, not bad from the Cubs. High upside pitcher as well, who I would like to have a pitcher like this. I like Tom Masters, that's a good pick. A couple really good picks from the Cubs. I think they had a solid draft. Wow. That's the worst draft I've ever seen. They had one player and he's a 69 potential dude. Oh my. There's a chance we only really have one impact player from this class when it's all said and done. Tom Williamson obviously going to play a role in this franchise. Obviously Hamilton with his 99 potential has a chance. He is quite a ways away though. This closer would have definitely been interesting. I would have liked him. That stamina even for pitchers really low, and obviously not much upside. Wasn't a great closer class, it's looking like. So really wanted to try to nab a closer of the future in this class. Didn't have the time to scout it again. I'll say it for like the third or fourth time, just because it took so much time to scout those generationals that I didn't have time to scout everything that I wanted in this class. And so had to take the risk at closer. Most of the guys we actually wanted were gone, but yeah, it just, I think missing out on the second was really what maybe makes this class worse than other classes. I think apart from that, we still had a solid class. You can't really ever have a bad class when you pick a generational player. Mac Jansen, our scouts really liked. I think he's good. He's obviously a good pick. I don't know if he was the third best player in the class. Maybe. I mean, there's not really a ton of great players after the two generationals. Now it's back to us. Francisco Cruz. I guess I just glossed over him. He ended up kind of being on the low end of his ratings, but fielding in the 70s, power in the 50s, switch hitter. Discipline's pretty low, but vision's solid, clutch is solid. Contact's not great. I still would have liked this player. I think if I would have picked him in the second round, I would have been happy with it, because what I really wanted is an outfielder that can have a bit of an arm. He could have been the right fielder of the future. We put Jason Gill back to left field. I think he has a future of being a good outfielder. I think he's kind of wasted at first base a little bit with that fielding. Like, if the strength of your entire game is fielding, you should not be playing first base. So a little bit lower than I would have hoped. I was hoping for like mid 60s and mid 80s at least, with the upside of maybe low 70s and low 90s, but ends up low 60s overall with low 80 potential. But like I said, I think at the end of the day, I would have been like, a little bit bummed because he's on the lower end, but that's still a skill set that I like. I would have liked that, because it offers something else in the outfield that we don't really have. We don't really have power in the outfield. We don't really have a good arm in the outfield. McIntyre's is pretty good, but he's obviously our center fielder. I'm talking more corner outfield. So in the end, not my strongest class, but we got a generational pitcher, which has just been something that's eluded me for the first, 30 drafts I've done in this game. Got it. And even if, honestly, Tom Williamson becomes the only player for us in this franchise, I think it's a really good pick. And at the end of the day, there's kind of one more reason, as we're going to just finish off this episode by going through stats up to this point with 2 months left. Let's just say hypothetically, right? Some scenario happened, I don't know, that we had to lose all but 5 players on our team. We could only keep 5 players. Who would those 5 players be in your mind? To me, I think there are 3 players that come to mind immediately that without a doubt are 5 protected players. Alberto Rincon, Russell Mosqueda, and Kevin Sandoval. These guys are just, I think, a tier above everyone else on the team. And then I think, honestly, Jason Gill would get one of those final 2 spots as well. And so we're talking probably 1 pitcher in kind of this little game we're playing where we can only protect 5 players on our team. I just wanted to have one of those. I just wanted a pitcher that could easily make the short list, right? Short list of Rincon, Mosqueda, and Sandoval, where without a doubt, without even having to think, I know those guys are going to be in my 5 protected players. We don't have any pitcher that can be there. I just wanted a pitcher that is really good, that I can call, a building block pitcher, because we kind of previewed our 3 highest upside guys in the minors. They're all good. I have hopes for all of them in the future, but none of them I feel slam dunk. This guy is going to work at the MLB level, and I feel that with Williamson. The dude's coming in not only with, throwing absolute heat, but he's got good per nines. He's got pretty well-rounded per nines. He's a guy that I think could be playing for our major league team and maybe be our best pitcher in year 1. I'm going to start him out in the minors for sure. At least give him a chance to develop some, prove that his ratings are actually being reflected with the way he plays and the way he sims. But if he's playing really well, I'm not going to hesitate to call him up in his year 18. His 18-year-old season. So hopefully we can see Williamson sooner rather than later. And I think that will be the case. He's going to be tied for pretty much the highest overall. I think Pringle is going to end up somewhere between like 83 and 81 on the season. And Williamson's coming in at an 81. And so, Kevin Sandoval is so much better than everyone else in WAR right now. There you have it. It's kind of those guys over 2. Jason Gill. We got 4 guys over 2 WAR. We don't have a single pitcher even close to that. And so that's ultimately why we went for Tom Williamson. I think even though we still definitely needed power a lot, and that's what Higgins provided us more than any of the prospects we've drafted at this point in the franchise, we just don't really have that caliber of pitcher at all. We have some power. Still need more, but we have some. Mosqueda's power versus the lefties going down by 4 is making him look bad. But I mean, just look at how he faces righties. He faces righties better than Higgins does. So I just felt we had some alternatives to power. We did not have somebody that I felt nearly as confident about at pitching as Williamson. That ultimately gave him the final edge. But I would have really loved to have had Higgins as well. You know, you put him in the outfield, and like him, Gill, and McIntyre in an outfield that you feel confident about for the rest of the series, and it would have been awesome. But I also, in turn, feel a lot more confident about the future of our pitching now that I know Williamson is entering the fold next season. But I'm really excited about the future of this franchise. This season, not going so well, but I'm excited for what we can do in the years to come. That's all I've got for this episode. I'll be back soon with another, and I will see you then.